Welcome to AAU Talks on AAU TV. My name is Felicia Nkrumah-Kwagbeji, and I'll be your host for today's special edition of AAU Talks. The 8th of March is set aside globally to celebrate International Women's Day. It is a day that is set aside to celebrate the achievement of women in terms of their social, their economic, their cultural, and their political contribution to the development of the continent and then, of course, of the entire globe. It is also a day that sets aside and marks the call to action for accelerating gender parity within our space, and also the issue of equity is really highlighted on this day. Today, under the auspices of the Women in Higher Education Network, in collaboration with the Association of African Universities, we are bringing you this special edition, as I mentioned earlier, and we are highly privileged to have in our midst a very powerful team who will be joining us to discuss the key theme for our discussion today, which is on leveraging technology and digitalization to achieve gender parity in Africa's higher education. Don't go anywhere, brace yourself, and stay tuned as I introduce the guest for the show in a minute. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to this special edition of AAU Talks, which is focusing on the International Women's Day celebration. This show, like I mentioned, is brought to you proudly by the Women in Higher Education Network, as well as the Association of African Universities. The first guest is Mrs. Adeline Addy, who is the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Manager for the World Bank-funded Africa Centers of Excellence project. She has a background in M&E, in project management, in international relations and psychology, with qualifications from the University of Stellenbosch, University of Ghana, and the Galilee College, among others. You are welcome to the show, Mrs. Addy, and we are very happy to have you here. Our second guest is Ms. Nodumo Dlamini, who is the Director for ICT Communications and Knowledge Management here at the Association of African Universities. Nodumo has over 20 years working experience in the following sectors: in secondary school education, in banking, railway transport, higher education, and tertiary agriculture education. She's passionate about developing IT and ICT programs that harness the opportunities for the end users. She has experience in strategic leadership, management, and administration. She has designed and implemented management information systems, supervised and mentored both technical and non-technical teams, worked with consultants, and monitored the implementation of research projects and other projects related to IT, ICT innovation in education and agriculture. I think from her background, you would agree with me that our theme for discussion really falls in line with her experience over the years. And we are so proud to actually have Ms. Nodumo join us here for today's discussion. And finally, our viewers, right here with us in our studio is our very special guest in the person of Honorable Gifty Chum Ampofo, who is the MP for Ibuakwa North Constituency, Eastern Region of the Republic of Ghana. She is also the Deputy Minister for Education of Ghana, in charge of Technical and Vocational Education and Training, TVET. Honorable Gifty Chum Ampofo is an accomplished politician, an astute leader, and educationist with over 20 years teaching and school management expertise. She holds an MBA in Strategic Management and Consultancy from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and a BSc in Biology from the University of Cape Coast. She is a professional teacher with a diploma in education from the University of Cape Coast, and she tutored at Sunyani Senior High School and moved on to Akosombo International School, where she taught biology and integrated science. She became the head of Department for Sciences and ICT, Examination and Timetable Committee, and also a house mistress. Honorable Gifty was the Deputy Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection from 2017 to March 2019, which means she has experiences as relates to both the area of gender, which is a focus of our discussion, as well as also having served on an ICT related committee, also very much in line with our topic for discussion for today. So we are indeed very happy to have all of our guests here, and I think we'll dive straight into the discussion for today. You are all welcome, and we are happy to have you here. How should they understand gender inequality, and how should they look at equity? What exactly are we even talking about?
Thank you, Felicia. Gender inequality focuses on women not having the same opportunities that the other gender has access to. For example, in higher education, we find that the numbers of women are much lower as they go through the pipeline. In lower levels, there are lots of women. At masters, at PhD, there are fewer. The reasons for that are many because of the women's roles in society that then remove them from the pipeline. And then because also of our societal roles, you'll find that girls are most likely to be used at home to do many things, while the boy child has access to school with nothing disturbing him. For example, if a girl child is unfortunate, falls pregnant, she then will lose out from school because she has to look after the child. Then on the other hand, gender equity is about us understanding the situation of each individual or of each community or of each, like the woman you are looking at, what are the things that affect her from being able to achieve her goals. Then we design solutions based on that understanding. So we are not giving a blanket type of solution, but we are giving a customized solution to lifting women up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good submission. So just to tie in with that, I may find myself at a workplace, at higher education institutions, or in a society, and I'm not so sure that there are issues of inequality, taking place or happening. I can't even identify it. So my question to Honorable would be that what would be the typical scenarios? What would be the ingredients? What would be the cases which, when I see, I should be able to identify that, no, there's an issue and we need to do something about it. I should be able to identify that there is aspect of inequality happening here, and therefore something needs to be changed, almost immediately. How would we define inequality in our typical day-to-day life, and what happens?
Thank you very much. We are grateful for this opportunity. How do we identify inequalities in a particular environment? As she said, the issues are well customized, so there's no one-fit-all environments and solutions. For instance, in our typical secondary schools, those days, if you were science students and you were female, the class is full of males. So if you should be the most clever, they give you all sorts of names. Why are you in a class with men and you are doing far better? Forgetting that women are more endowed than men. But they think that in the science class, you don't find a lot of ladies there. So then they think that if you are a science student in the midst of a lot of males and you are excelling so much, then you are the odd one, because most of the females or the girls who do other courses rather than doing science and mathematics. So then it is important that we put systems in place to recycle are females, the younger ones to know that science is an area where if you pursue any STEM related program, hardly are you going to be unemployed. And even if you are employed, you are employed to a prestigious companies and at levels as compared to the humanities. Let me give an old issue that happened. There was a we used to call that commercial school, while they were doing typing and shorthand and typing, and then maths and accounting. You find all girls doing shorthand and typing, and you find all boys doing maths and accounting. And immediately after school, those doing accounting become managers, and then those doing shorthand and type become secretaries. So the same classmates, you go out there, he's your boss. It wasn't that the boys were more clever than the girls, but then girls should go and do shorthand and typing because you're going to have to be secretaries. And then all the boys you go and do, they said, 5 man, you can't be a secretary, so don't go and do shorthand typing. So, but the courses were all 3 years. The entry requirements were same, but because of cultures and some norms. But after they leave school, they realized that, but this young man was much more clever than him. How come I didn't do accounting? He did, and now he's the manager, and I still remain the secretary that I do too many errands. So those are our cultures and the things we are used to see. So then, with that checking our abilities, we agree to such things. So what we need to do is, as we're doing here, we need to recycle ourselves. Let me say that again. We need to recycle ourselves for our young girls to know that they are well endowed. They can do too many things that a lot of males cannot do. And as we're doing that, we also put measures in place to ensure that if there are hurdles, they will jump those hurdles easily. Like in the at the education ministry, there are too many that we're doing to ensure that those hurdles are crossed. In areas of poverty, that let the girl admit that, let me do something that I could get some income within a short possible time, because for a lady, somebody will take care of you. At least that hurdle is being crossed so far as Ghana is concerned, because when you go into the second cycle institutions, it's not a matter of bring money, come and pay your school fees, for parents to say that we don't have enough money for both the boy and the girl. So the girl should come and help to raise some support financially for the family. But we all having the same facility. That is, once you pass your BEC and go into secondary school, you have your tuition and everything being free. But then, in a traditional secondary schools where you have 5 streams, at most you have 1 science class. So in effect, we're not leveraging well for the girl. But we're putting in another measure to establish a lot of girls' STEM institutions and expanding the science facilities for already existing girls' SHS to increase intake at these schools, so that in a school where there were 6-7 streams, that they had only 2 science classes, now they're having 3-4 science classes, because these are girls' schools, because we have improved the laboratory facilities. And we're also setting up STEM girls' schools. SHS that is full of SHS doing science programs, and is all girls. So by so doing, we conscientizing the girls. We're also giving them the opportunities to get to these girls' schools and pursue science. So those are the things that we're doing to bridge the gap, because we realized that girls were being educated fine, especially those who are fond of getting parents who are educated. But the programs that the girls were doing were too many humanities. For instance, in the area of TVET, almost all the ladies want to do hospitality, cosmetology, fashion and design. Meanwhile, globally, the good chefs are no women, they are males. So why are all girls wanted to do hospitality, cosmetology? So in recycling, that we're getting many more doing welding and fabrication, electronics and electricals, those areas. So we have a lot of work to do as a people and as people of the same continent. And this is not peculiar to only Africa, it's all over. I was in Germany and they had the same problem that in areas of TVET, the courses that have already market, you struggle to get the ladies do them because they have considered themselves that this is a male dominated area. So what is my business going there? So as we establishing the second cycle STEM girls schools and expanding the facilities for girls schools to do or to enroll many more girls to do science, I'm sure in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the equity will not just be equity in numbers, but you have them in areas of science and technology where digitalization will just be a vessel for them to ride on.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable, for that submission. I'll come back to you because I think a lot of initiatives are, being implemented, but I don't think we really are where we should be. So in terms of taking a step much further, what do you think we are lacking, or what should we do? Where are the areas where we should tighten the boat? But I'll come back to you. I think as part of Honorable's contribution in terms of why we find inequality in our settings, she did mention the issue of culture. Now, I want us to look at other aspects. So aside culture, why do we think we still find ourselves in this situation where the women are still not really at the decision-making table, where the women still seem to be behind in terms of so many other areas? So I think she helped identify culture. I want to look at other reasons why we think that inequality still thrives in our higher education institution, in our society, in our workplaces, and mostly in our environment. What really are the other issues?
So, from my point of view, she's right. I mean, the culture, because the culture is at the basis. I mean, it's the foundation of it all. So, that is the root cause. And then there are other things that come up as a result of the norms that we have. So you find that we have these inequalities in the system. Never mind, sometimes it's against the male gender and sometimes against the female gender. But we have these in the system when they are not addressed. When they are not addressed, then it persists. And then it metamorphoses into other things. So issues like, then there's that other aspect that relates to, just our makeup, our biological makeup also puts us sometimes in a disadvantaged position. For instance, when you look at higher education, one way in which these inequalities play out is in the learning environment. Was it 2 years ago or so, there was this issue of sexual harassment. Normally, when we talk sexual harassment in the higher education sector, the victim is actually the female. So just our biological makeup places us in a disadvantaged position. When issues are not addressed, no awareness is being raised, then it persists. So in my view, there's a lot of awareness that needs to be raised about these issues. I give you an example. Culture wise, I work on a project. It's results based, so it requires that we validate results before we give out any funds. So in validating the results, sometimes we employ technology to reach out to students to say, did you actually enroll on this project, on this program, etc., etc. Now we find a situation where a significant proportion of the students don't respond to the survey that we send out. And it's sent out by electronically. And then we find out that in a particular country, the issue is that the ladies are not allowed to keep their phones. Those that are married, the husbands keep their phones for them.
Really?
Yes.
21st century.
Exactly. But they keep the phones for them.
Surprising.
And they respond to the survey. So you can imagine that there are some anomalies with the responses they give. And that presents a big challenge. For me, it was a shock. Because in our setting, I mean, most women have their own phones. But this is happening somewhere else in Africa, and specifically in the sub-region. So there are these inequalities. And first of all, let's raise awareness. And I realized that most of the interventions to address this, there's a lot of emphasis on facilitating access. But there's a need for us to look beyond that and say, okay, so we get them in. And when we get them in, what is the environment like?
Okay.
Is it a good enough environment for them to thrive and to complete? We have on the projects I work on, for instance, I mean, there's we are trying to be gender sensitive, and so we try to look at, have indicators and look at the gender side of things, you see. But go beyond that and say, what is being done? Raise awareness, let people know that there are these issues that exist. What do we do about them? In some instances, people are not even aware. There are some females that are not aware that they are in a disadvantaged position. I mean, if I don't think I'm sick, why are you prescribing medicine for me? So these are issues that need to be addressed. The environment in which they learn.
Okay, I think you raised an important issue about makeup, as women, and I really tend to agree, because sometimes you would have opportunities, let's say scholarships for students to go and do their PhDs, and then the cutoff age is around 35, for instance, for both men and female, for both male and female, and you ask yourself that, being women, sometimes because of our biological clock, she may want to either marry early, have kids, and other things will come along the line. And by the time she's actually ready to do her PhD, she's already 40 or 40 plus, which means she has actually lost out on those scholarships. So her biological makeup in this case, which shouldn't be a hindrance, is now being looked at as a hindrance, which means that there really has to be deliberate interventions to, that's where equity comes in, like Madame Nodomo was earlier referring to, where you customize even the intervention to suit the specific needs of the male and then the female. Otherwise, the women, by their biological frame as women, will tend to lose out on some very important opportunities. So thank you. I thought that was a very good intervention, in addition to the cultural aspect. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly to now discuss how we can leverage ICT and digitalization frameworks that are available to really close the gender gap and make sure that there's parity, between both genders, which is males and female. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. Just stay tuned. Welcome back to the special edition of the AAU Talks, which is dedicated to the celebration of International Women's Day. Before the break, I think we're having a very deep discussion with our honorable guests. We have in our midst Honorable Gifty Chum Ampofo. We also have Mrs. Nodmo Dlamini. We also have Ms. Nodmo Dlamini. And then we have Mrs. Adeline Adi. These are powerful women, and we have really been discussing the issue, what exactly is the gender inequality? In which form does it manifest in our society? I think there were discussions that mostly the women are more endowed and are more sort of powerful than the men. And I'm sure a man listening is wondering, what are these women talking about? So I want to ask, is that really the case? Do we think women are actually more endowed and more powerful, and that is the reason why, our traditional setting or our culture deliberately put in place measures to sort of limit or reduce their power a little bit? Do we really think, is there research to the effect that women can do better than men? Maybe Miss Odino will go first.
Yeah, I think that emphasis is important for us to appreciate that in terms of our brains, our IQ, our capacity, we are not different than men. And also to note that there are some special skills and makeup of women which, if they are nurtured, can help women to succeed even more than the boys. From my experience, I think a mixture of teams is what works best.
Okay.
For example, if you are in a software development team and you bring both male and female software developers to develop a system, that system is likely to be more successful because they are both female and male teams. Because the women will pick out certain things about functionality which maybe the male teams would not pick. Then you'll find that the boys would like to experiment more.
Okay.
So they would bring that knowledge and that value to the team. So I really lobby for joint working together in a team so that we are successful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think her approach is that it's more of a teamwork, it's more of a joint work. And it is for that reason why we should be deliberate about removing the hurdles so that the women can equally have an equal play field.
They sit at the table
Okay.
together with them.
Okay. All right. So now coming to our topic for discussion today, I would want Mrs. Adi to tell us how she thinks women can tap into the current digital era. How can we leverage on the current ICT tools, on the current technological age to ensure that we are achieving parity as relates to gender?
Thank you. I think that technology presents a whole new world of opportunities for women. We do know the reasons for some of the inequalities. We know what our challenges are. So as a student, especially in higher education, we find a lot of women these days, in higher education institutions after they've had their kids, etc. And being a mother and a student at the same time, sometimes it's not easy, or being a wife and a student at the same time has its challenges. And technology has made learning remotely possible. You can be in the comfort of your homes and learn. Access whatever program you want to access. And that is a very big jump ahead for us. It's a very great opportunity for women that we can take advantage of. In fact, we did see, during the COVID, a whole lot. Before, in certain countries, when you talk remote education, people did not really give much importance to it. But during the COVID, we saw that a whole lot of things, especially with respect to the project I work under, we were able to continue working because certain things were put in place to allow us to work remotely, to allow various centers we work with to continue with their work, and there were fewer disruptions. Recently, I even have learned that it's possible to undertake internships virtually. Yeah, you can undertake internships virtually. There are a number of organizations that are doing it. And it takes the load off your back. I mean, you don't need to go around looking for placement. In the comfort of your homes, you have someone match your skills, your competencies, your program you are following with an appropriate organization, and then you are linked up. I mean, can you imagine how wonderful that is? I could be here in Ghana and then having an internship in some very prestigious organization, say in the US, for instance. So
in Africa. Actually.
Yes, those are the possibilities. I mean, a mother, a student, taking care of a sick child. It doesn't mean that then you miss out on the class for the day. You are taking care of your child and you are still following your classes online. It's just that, so those are some of the opportunities that IT presents for us as women and helps to bridge the gap a bit. But then we must not lose sight of the fact that most of the curriculum that we use in our universities and in other educational institutions, they are developed mostly by men and tend to be skewed towards men. Even the pronouns they use in there, it's all men. So yes, IT would give us some access, would help us circumvent some of the challenges, but then there has to be further work to make sure that the content also responds to our needs. For me, I like the idea of equity.
Okay.
I don't think in any way that we are equal, but then each gender has its advantages, and we must leverage on these. And then, like Ms. Nodumo was saying, make sure we work together. I mean, to get better results.
Okay. Just to follow up on your submission, you spoke about the decision makers mainly being men, those who actually come together to put even the content and a lot of the layout and things in place are the men. And it's because currently we find the men at the decision in the boardroom, I mean, in most institutions. So that also brings back the issue of what are we doing to empower our women? What are we doing to change the narrative? So I'd like to come to Honorable. You are a woman who have navigated through this space and you find yourself in the boardroom. You are at the top there. You are an accomplished minister. What do you think we should be doing to change the narrative to ensure that the young girl who is in GSS, who is in primary school, begins to be empowered and begins to think that I must aim to be the accountant you spoke about earlier and not the secretary? What should we do? I mean, based on your experiences, having risen through the ranks to get to where you are, what should we be doing ordinarily, especially in higher education institutions, to empower the young girl? Or we can actually look at it from the basic level, because that's where it actually starts. What should we be doing so that the woman is also forcing her way? As they say, the boardroom is full. You have to force your chair inside for someone to push for you to get a seat. What should we do to make her feel that confidence that yes, indeed, she can actually get there?
Thank you. I think it's her culture. At the adolescent stage, if a boy should mess up immorally, we speak about that for less than a week. But if a woman should do same, for centuries we're talking about that. But adolescents are full of energy. So sometimes with limited parental control, maybe you lower the standard a bit. But should somebody know, anytime the woman comes out into leadership, they talk about these things and she'll crawl back into her corner. But for men, let a man rape somebody's wife today and tomorrow he wants to be a manager. Oh, this man that, and that's the end. But should we be a woman? For years they're talking about that. So these are some of the serious inequalities against women. So I always tell young girls that women are much more endowed. You said, are there any research? Scientifically. Because the scientists, those who have authority in genetics, they say that genetic makeup of girls and boys are slightly different. And then they say that the boys are made up of one X chromosome and one Y chromosome. Yes. But the experts who are full of men said that the Y chromosome is short and hollow. It means materials in the Y chromosome is limited. And the girl is made up of two X chromosomes. And they say that the X chromosomes are longer, larger, and full of substance. I didn't say that. The authorities in genetics said that.
We investigate that.
Oh, yes. They said that the X chromosome is full of substance. That's the word used. I'm a biology teacher, so it's what the authorities say that I will say.
Yeah.
Remember, I said earlier that boys or males are able to take a lot of risk. We can't take it away from them. And she said that in experiments, you see the boys doing better because boys, per their nature, maybe that's what we have in the Y. I don't know. That nobody has stated that. They take a lot of risk. They take a lot of risk, and because of that, they are very much adventurous. Yeah. But if a woman or a girl is taking decision, she thinks about herself, her family. Will this affect them? It's a negative. But then men are very adventurous, so they always identify new grounds. Whereas women will say, "Hey, let me take my time." Those are the major difference between us. But to think of what we could do in terms of substance, where I taught for 16 years, all speech days, the girls were doing far better. So we took our time to see what it was. And it was obvious that in that school, you found boys and girls playing and play. In that school, we didn't have any girls' games and boys' games. Primary school, you come and meet boys and girls playing and play. Boys and girls playing football. So realize that the conditions there were purely parity. And at SS level, if we have 13 subjects for awards, the girls would take sometimes 10, 8. So then we took at and realized that when we give boys and girls the same opportunities, the girls do better. About how do we, since the boardroom is full already, how do we get the confidence to take our chairs and say, "Hey, Master, push and let me sit somewhere"? Because
I also belong here.
There are a few things we had to do. You spoke about the age because of our biological makeup. And as Africans, when you have education, as much as possible, all things being equal, we have marriage, all things being equal, it's way to make babies. Some people have their own decision, but usually, all things being equal. In our setups, we don't even have nurses for all our institutions. That the mother, after maternity leave, could come to work with the baby and take care of it. We don't have that. In our ministries and others, we don't have good crèche and nurseries that we wish that and libraries. I'll come along with my baby. So that even if I have board meeting, emergency meetings at 5 p.m., I will say that since my child is just here, I can sit at the boardroom and make reasonable contributions. For that, you went through in vitro fertilization to get one child. And then they said, come for board meeting at 8, whilst your child closes at 4. Master, I'm going to take care of my baby. It's normal. So all these structures, but policy, we need to try to put them down. Or think of flexi place of work and flexi hours of work. One you mentioned that the labor people will tell you that, after maternity leave, you come to work at 10 and close at 3. I live at Kakasunanka, beyond Michelle Camp, and we work at the ministries. If you want to get there at 10 a.m., you have to leave home 6. Else you can't get to work at 10 a.m. So coming to work at 10 a.m., you haven't done the nursing mother any good because she loved the baby as early as 6 a.m. Okay, you close at 3. She closes at 3 and get home at 7 p.m. So what have we done? Nothing. But when we agree by principle and policy to have a flexible place of work and time of work, the nursing mother will know that my child sleeps and wakes up at 10 a.m. So whatever assignment my supervisor gives me, I'll make sure I finish with them before 10 a.m. and I push it to the next person. Now I have the whole mid-morning to take care of my baby. So I think that we thought this couldn't work, but by courtesy COVID, we know it can work. Yes. So as Africa and as a continent and as individuals, we should, and as women, we should judge around flexible place of work instead of extending maternity leaves. Because if you're an employer or you're a head teacher and you have 3 beautiful young ladies hardworking on your staff, and they're all happy to get pregnant at the same time, and they're asking for extended maternity leave, and 2 of them manage final year classes. But if you have a flexible place of work, she will send assignments. Find time within the period to see the students about an hour or 2. Or even with the COVID that we were doing online teaching, remote teaching and learning, she could set up her room, get the students set up at the computer lab, and real teaching will take place. She will send assignments, collect the books, mark them, return them on time, and this could be done. So I think we need to put those into our policy, our labor policies, and also need to psych our ladies to ensure that you keep our timelines. So nobody will think that she won't come to work, this shadow, and she's no. So that you work from home, everybody knows that the assignment that the deadline is 10 a.m. By 7 a.m. it is in the tray. Once we do that, we will continue to be relevant. We also have time to attend to few things. One incident I remember very well during COVID, my minister was in a meeting. I was far away in my constituency. And then I had a missed call from his PA. I said, why this morning? And then she called me and said that we're having a meeting, minister is chairing a meeting, he moved to another meeting, so he expected to take over the first meeting. I had just woken up. I didn't even dress up. I just put off my video. Okay. And then, so immediately I connected, he said, my deputy is taking over, I'm moving to another meeting. By courtesy, digitalization. Yeah. I could do all family responsibilities together with my constituency work and still be relevant at or whatever goes on at the ministry. So that's how we could leverage. Okay. And we should, even though we find men most of the time online, if you check all platforms, the men on platforms are almost always online. Maybe because of their social setup. Because after work, they have closed. They are free. But after work, have you closed as women? No, you have a second job. And a third. So, we should take advantage and let the people we work with realize that we're really training ourselves to leverage. So if they're leaving any responsibility for us digitally, they know that, oh, don't worry, for this woman, but the next hour, the work will be done. And it should be done. So we need to put structures in place. We need to amend some policies. And as women, we need to recycle and reposition ourselves. Because talking about all the other laws you want to bring in, the men are already at the ballroom and the place is full. Who are you bringing out? Like in political era. We using all means to increase the number of women in parliament. It's not easy. Because where you are sure that is a stronghold of party A or party B. So when you send a female, definitely she will win. We also have some areas that, yes, it is true, but because of tribal and political, as well as culture, they wouldn't want any lady to become their leader. So you won't get that right. So it's full. There's no vacant constituency. So who should you say that you are male, so next time don't contest? I want to. It's not there. So we need to pick the chairs and push them. Say, hey, give me space.
Yeah.
Or you can do that when I'm very confident.
Yes.
You are full of facts.
Yes.
You have worked as it's in the Bible. You must take our destinies into our own hands and make sure that once you are given one opportunity, everybody will say that, oh, I think we need more women. Okay. But when you go there and business as usual, then they will say that, but what impact are women making? So those of us that by the grace of God, we have reached some boardroom levels, we need to work. Malta president said that we need to work 6 times harder. Then we ask her why. She said, at the home, you need to prove your sort before they even admit that you can be a leader. When you get to the school, it is there. Then when you get to the workplace, it is there. And to get to leadership, you need to prove that you could do and even do more. Because change is one thing which is inevitable. But human beings, we don't like change. We are used to men being our bosses. We are used to men being this. Why this time a woman? Okay. And then once that statement are made, then people have started benchmarking you. But forgetting that men and women, we have our unique differences. Okay. Especially in politics. The men are...
My director signaling for us to...
Good. Let me just land this. In politics, the way men do their work, women are slightly different. Okay. But because it has been a man's world, they want you to behave like the man. But the issue is, as David told King Saul, all these that you give me, I haven't used them, I haven't tried them before. I am a unique person. I have my own strength. And I have my weaknesses. So let me use my strength, and gradually you appreciate your strength. But it takes time for people to know that this is the way you want it, and we're giving results. But society has to be more patient. And unfortunately, our own ladies become so impatient when ladies are leading. So we need to recycle ourselves. Again, women usually get to the boardroom at a different biological stage, menopause. All comes with their own crisis. So we need to, the women need to know that we get into menopause, you read and readjust yourself. So that they wouldn't say that, oh, those menopause people, they are in leadership and you have problems. These are all issues that are being a challenge to women. But we definitely be there as we recycle ourselves and recycle those behind us. We shall be there. So we want to say that women who have helped to bring us this far, we appreciate them. And International Women's Day, we hope we're going to make much more impact than we have done earlier. And let all of us pick a girl before she becomes sexually active and mentor her. Once you do that, you get to the top. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I think you've highlighted the issue of mentorship, which is very important. So I'll take closing words from Madame Nodumo and then Madame Adeline Adi. For her, I would want her to tell us, practically, because Honorable did mention that the women should be confident and the women should actually take their destiny in their hands. But sometimes the structures are not in place to allow you function. So we want to understand, for instance, on the projects that you are on, the Africa Centers of Excellence project, what mechanisms are being put in place to, to promote and to ensure that the women are part of it and they also get to thrive. And then maybe for Madame Nodumo, she can also tell us about what structures, what tools, what resources are in place that women can leverage on as relates to, digitalization for us to ensure that we are contributing to bridging gender inequality. So we want to know what frameworks, what supporting systems are actually in place. So maybe in 1 minute, Yeah.
So thank you very much. So under the project, it's results based. We have unit cost for each result that you achieve, and with respect to enrollment, the unit cost for female students is higher than what we have for male students, both at the national and regional level. We go beyond that to provide some mentorship, if you like, some capacity building for the females. Like recently, we've had a series of webinars that is taking them into negotiation, because you find that females do not really know how to negotiate when it comes to employment. So we are taking them through these trainings, ensuring that we mentor them and they come out at the top and join the men in the boardroom.
Thank you very much. So we'll hear from Madame Nodumo.
Okay. Thank you, Felicia. I think the biggest opportunity is in the area of digital literacy, because there's quite a lot of free courses that women can leverage and actually do. Google offers free courses, IBM, HP, edX, Coursera. There's quite a lot in that area. So the only challenge is really connectivity for the girls that are not in town. So we'd want to appeal to governments to really make sure that they cover the last mile in terms of connectivity and focus on rural areas. There are also opportunities for learning how to code. There are so many coding clubs. Girls should find out what's out there. There are a number of women in ICT networks which are working to uplift women so that they understand the benefits that digitalization is bringing. So it's about women knowing what is happening in the area of digital literacy, what's happening in terms of networking, what is happening in terms of job opportunities in the area of digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my distinguished guest, and thank you very much, viewers, for staying tuned throughout the discussion. We have been discussing how we can actually leverage ICT and digitalization to promote gender equality and gender equity, basically. And my guest with me in the studio today has been Madame Adeline Adi, who is the Monitoring and Evaluation Manager for the World Bank funded Africa Centers of Excellence project, which is being implemented in 11 countries across the African continent. And then I've also had the pleasure of hosting Madame Nodumo Dlamini, who is the Director of ICT Communications and Knowledge Management here at the Association of African Universities. And then our very special guest, the Honorable Gifty Chum Ampofo, who is the MP for Ebuakwa North constituency, which is in the eastern region of Ghana, and also the Deputy Minister for Education of the Republic of Ghana, in charge of TVET. We've been really privileged to have all of you. The discussions have been good, and we really hope that moving forward, all the great lessons you have shared with us in terms of mentorship, in terms of looking for the opportunities that she spoke about, would actually leverage this to our advantage. And then when next we are meeting, we should really be sharing successes. We should really be reporting how happy we are that now some of these gaps, have been filled, and we are finding more women in the boardroom where the decision making are taking place. So we thank you for staying tuned. My name is Felicia Nkumakwabeji, and I have been the host for this wonderful show. We thank you all, and we'll see you soon. This is AAU Talks. Thanks for staying tuned.